Hi everybody, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today's video is going to be showing you the entire tech tree of the upcoming Polish vehicles from Tier 1 to Tier 10. This was just posted on the World of Tanks Russia homepage, so without further ado, let's get started. So immediately Wargaming talk about the fact that they had a problem when they were trying to create the Polish tech tree, that for example, the Soviets have the T-34, the Americans have the Pershing, while the UK has got vehicles like the Cromwell, the Churchill, and apparently Poland had nothing to brag about. And so effectively what Wargaming decided to do was to delve deeply into the records to be able to then create a working group or a tech tree of tanks that would give Poland its own unique playstyle. So firstly, let's take a look at the low tier tanks. And it's going to be starting with the 4TP, which is based on the Vickers, so a big British influence coming in here. The vehicle apparently weighs just over 4 tons, but it can go very quickly at 55 kilometers an hour. Are you kidding me? This is going to be a tier 1 tank that can go at 55 kilometers an hour? That sounds pretty crazy, and I'm not sure we really need all of the SEAL clubbers going in and bombing it around at that kind of speed at tier 1, but alright, we're just going to have to see what happens with that tier 1 tank and how that's going to be balanced. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at tier 2, which is the 7TP. Once again, it was a Vickers design, and apparently 150 of these were created. And yeah, it looks like your kind of run-of-the-mill tier 2 tank, a fully traversable turret, got some tracks. Doesn't look like it's going to be the fastest, I don't think. Kind of getting American and British vibes from this tech tree so far. Alright, now we're going to be jumping up to Tier 3 and Tier 4, and we're going to be looking at the 10TP and the 14TP, which are apparently running Christie suspensions, but their development was stopped shortly after the outbreak of World War II. And why does this thing kind of remind me of a BT2 or a BT7? It feels like the tech tree has now gone for a kind of Soviet look, and oh, definitely, yeah, this looks a lot like a BT7 to me. Alright, so that's Tier 1 to Tier 4, you're probably not going to spend a lot of time there. Now let's take a look around the mid-tiers. We're going to be looking at Tier 5 now, which is apparently the KSU ST1, which was apparently developed in 1937, has been long awaited within the Polish community under the name of the 20/25TP. And boy, this thing looks weird. It kind of reminds me of the OI with the 2 front turrets, or some of the real low-tier British tanks that have stupid design like that as well. But apparently this one has got a 75mm, and it's got 140 alpha damage. And 140 alpha damage at tier 5 is impressive, because a lot of other tier 5 medium tanks are kind of packing 115. So is that something that we're immediately going to notice about the Polish tech tree? Is this going to be a higher alpha damage tech tree? Well, we're just going to have to keep working our way up to take a look. But oh my word, this thing looks ridiculous at tier 5. Oh my word. All right, this for me is probably where I'm going to start the tech tree, just so I can play this kind of ridiculous KV4 looking freak at tier 5. 25TP, here I come. Alright, so far so good. Let's take a look to see what we got at tier 6 and tier 7. And now, oh my word, this is where the tech tree completely changes. Once again, the tier 6 almost looks as if it's like a Swedish / a Czech tank. And is this the tier 7? Oh my word, it's got such a rounded turret. Oh, spoilers. Let's take a look at the tier 6 before we move on to the tier 7. So apparently these two tiers come from a Polish engineer called Edward Habish, who looks like he blended together the ideas of the Soviet and German tank designs, which can be seen within the Western compact turret combined with the well-angled Eastern armor. And Wargaming are hinting that this tier 6 medium is going to have an impressive alpha damage of 220 to 240, although that's not really that special, because just recently we saw the tier 6 Italian medium tank have 240 alpha damage as well. Nevertheless, we'll just have to wait and see what all of the statistics of the vehicle will be, but this tank has been slated as the 40TP. Alright, now moving on to tier 7, and a vehicle which is called the 45TP, which apparently Wargaming is stating that they really didn't have much to go on, but they're just making the vehicles bigger because I guess they're working their way up the tiers, and that's how they have the concept of their Polish tanks. Now apparently this tier 7 vehicle will pack a 105mm gun, which will have an alpha damage in the range of 300 to 320, which again is impressive. But there are tanks like the IS that have got 390, so we'll have to see whether the rate of fire makes up for it. So far that kind of early promise of really high alpha damage doesn't seem to be holding up for this tech tree. And my gut instinct is this is actually going to be the first of the heavy tanks along the tech tree, but it's still going to have relatively weak armor that will force you to have to play carefully. Alright, so far so okay. Nothing really has caught my interest apart from that tier 5. Let's take a look at the high level tanks, and this is usually where Wargaming start to really pull the stops up with their development once you reach tier 8. And is that going to be the case with the 53 TP? Wow, this thing is looking a lot like a 110 or a front turreted IS. Okay, so finally this is going to be a true heavy tank with a top speed limit of 25 kilometers an hour, and it's going to have 105mm and 122mm guns, and apparently it's going to have a 120mm howitzer, and this is going to be the first vehicle along the line where you're truly going to be able to feel your turret armor, apparently. And I expect it's going to have very nice gun depression angles as well, and because of that frontal hull, do you see how well angled it is? I can imagine if you can hide the lower plate of this vehicle and use your gun depression, your upper hull armor, and your turret armor, then this thing is probably going to be quite a comfortable tier 8 to play. But you know, that speed limit, you're going to have to be very careful about where you choose to go when you can only go at 25 kilometers an hour. Alright, so that is the tier 8. Now we're going to be working our way up towards tier 9. What do we have to look forward to? Well, it's called the 50 TP now. And apparently the 50 TP has 130mm main armament capable of doing 490 to 560 alpha damage. Alright, so now the alpha seems to be coming into play. The only other tier 9 heavy tank that I can think of that has more than 560 alpha will be the Type 4 heavy if it chooses to use its armor piercing rounds, but most people just use the derp gun and fire high explosive with that tank. And so this thing looks like it might be a real sweet spot for the line, but look at the hull armor. I mean, look at the driver's hatch on the front of the vehicle. As you can see here, I mean, oh, that looks very flat. And I know that they've said in one of their developer diaries that that's probably going to be one of the weak points of the Polish tanks. Also, the cupola on top. Yeah, we're really just going to have to wait and see how this vehicle holds up. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's take a look to see what tier 10 is going to bring for Poland. And wow, that thing looks very different. Kind of like an ST1 hull with an IS-7 turret? What's this vehicle going to be called? It's going to be called the 60 TP, the Lewandowskiego. I'm pretty sure I'm wrecking that. I'm going to have to work on my Polish for this upcoming tech tree, right? So apparently Wargaming have not quite decided whether they want to use the 130mm or 152mm caliber gun on this tank. But if they do choose to use the 152mm, it's going to have 750 alpha damage. So it's going to play a lot like an IS-4 mixed with an E100, but it's going to have 8 degrees of gun depression, which should allow it some great flexibility over a ridgeline. So all exciting stuff so far for the Polish tech tree. Funnily enough, as I was making this video, Wargaming actually released statistics on the tier 9 and the tier 10 tank, and you know what, I'm probably going to release that video first. And so if you want to go see a full opinion on the tier 9 and the tier 10 vehicle with some real delving deep into the statistics, then you can check out the video from, I guess, before this one, or alternatively just click the more info icon in the top right hand corner of your screen. But that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know in the comments what you think about this very early preview of the Polish tech tree. Do you think it looks immensely promising? What do you think about all the models? Are any of the tanks a complete surprise for you? And what do you think like the highlights look like so far? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.